I'm taking you with me grocery shopping on what I will say was a very disorganized week of grocery shopping because usually I'm pretty calculated about when and where I shop, but this week just really got away from me and I found myself just going out to get things here and there whenever I could make time and in whatever neighborhood I happened to be in at that time. On Monday, I found myself with about 40 minutes free to go do some groceries, so I just decided to pick up some things that I would need for that night or the following day. Just a really quick run. So I got some buns and cold cuts for my husband. Even though these are not okay for my allergies, they make really great snacks for him, so I'm okay to have them in my house, and he's very clean about it. I didn't get my veggies here, but I'll show you where I got them later. This is a lot of bananas. I picked up some olive oil, and I cannot believe that I was actually out of olive oil entirely. I don't think that has ever happened to me in my life before. I also picked up my favorite tomato paste, and you'll notice that I read every single label every single time I buy it, because you never know if a manufacturer has changed their practices or their ingredients, and I would hate to get home and see that something has a may contain nuts warning or maybe even has a whole other ingredient that it didn't used to contain. And if I'm allergic to it, that would mean that I have to go back to the store and return it or give it to someone else, and it kind of just becomes a whole pain. So I take a few extra moments to always read every single label every single time. I also like to get a lot of walking in when I'm doing my groceries, and I don't mind carrying my bags. I tend to plan for that, actually. Then I went over to another store where I just really love their produce because they have so much Ontario produce. Now, obviously the bananas didn't come from here, but a lot of their things come from Ontario, and I find their prices great. Now, no matter the weather in Canada, there's always a guy in shorts. Then I did a little bit more walking with my load on my shoulder, my heavy grocery load. And I don't mind getting in a little bit of exercise when I have the opportunity. A few days later, I needed to head out yet again for some more groceries. It turns out that this week we kind of ran out of a lot of the things that I only buy monthly or maybe every 6 weeks. I don't know how that timing aligned so perfectly, but I felt like I was just constantly going to the grocery store this week to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. However, it was a perfect day for walking. There's a distinction between a health food or a natural food store and a fine food store, and I think people often get the two confused. A health food or natural food store would be like the store that I'm in now. That's not to say that they can't have bougier, fancier things, but they tend to be more focused on food for special diets, food that is organic, food that is free from, for example, gluten-free or dairy-free, and those stores tend to have a lot of things that I can have. However, a fine food store, I'll show you that later in the video. Then I went over to another store just a couple doors over because I really like this brand of salt that they carry, and I wanted an avocado, and this store just sells the best avocados, which obviously are not grown in Ontario, but when I do buy an avocado, I like to get a really good one, and these ones are never grainy. They're always amazing. I really love inner city grocery stores. They are just such unique experiences, and I could take you through grocery store ASMR all day long, but I don't know if anyone would want to watch that aside from me, possibly. I made my way over to the salt, and I just like it because, I'm not gonna lie, I like the packaging, but it's also just a very flavorful salt. And then I went around the corner because inner city stores do tend to have a lot of nooks and crannies. And I got myself a drink. Then I went down the street to a convenience store that is really so much more than a convenience store. It's almost like a small health food store. They really cater to the neighborhood, and they carry every flavor of kombucha you can imagine. Then later in the week, I wanted to go over to Kensington Market. It was a beautiful day, and Kensington Market has so many incredible independently owned health food stores. Health food stores, in case you haven't noticed by now, are really a big part of our local food culture in Toronto. We have a lot of independent ones. So I got one bag of the flour that I wanted, and I love this store, by the way. I just think it's gorgeous. And they were growing their own tomatoes. It's fabulous. But they didn't have the other variety of flour from that brand that I wanted. So I went down the street to another health food store, and I found the one that I was looking for. It was a really nice jaunt, and it was also just a great walk that day. Now on Friday, unfortunately, I flew out of the house in a hurry. I had so many errands to do. I was so behind on my work. So I popped over to a local store that carries a lot of allergy-friendly brands, and I wanted an off time just to make sure that it wasn't super busy. And they carry a lot of really specific brands. I love this seaweed, by the way. I just wanted to call that out. Whole Foods, for example, carries a brand of olives that I really like. I also discovered something new. I always am curious, and I like to pick things up and read ingredients labels just to see what happens. So I found this coconut oil, and I decided to just quickly look it up online and see if they had any allergen labeling. Their site was really easy to navigate. This is not sponsored at all, by the way. So I looked up the product I was holding, and I couldn't believe it said free of the top 10 allergens. So of course I had to buy it. That was easy. Put that in my cart. Actually, put 2 of the larger size in my cart. I bought one for a family member. In Toronto, we're just really blessed and lucky that we have so many foods for people with special diets available. Sometimes I forget that things have changed so much from when I was a kid, and I still have a bit of that scarcity mentality, but I just have to remind myself that now there are so many different brands and people are becoming so much more aware of allergies and their severity. So I went down the street, well, it was a bit of a jaunt, to an Italian fine food store. I'd really like coming to this store because I'm Italian, so culturally there are just a lot of things that are familiar to me, and I enjoy the environment. But this is where I get to my description of fine food stores, which this is a fine food store, and you'll notice it's quite nutty. And I find that fine food stores tend to have a lot of nuts, a lot of chocolate, a lot of cheeses. And although these things are not safe for me, I still love to look at them, to be honest. Even being around a wheel of cheese is within my comfort zone. I'm not going to lick it, obviously, but it is in that store. I also took a little trip to look at my book, which is always exciting.